All right, guys, this week we're going to be talking about sharpening your dad edge. That's right. That's right. But before we get too far in this conversation, you know how we always start every line within us is with scripture. And the scripture of the week, Ephesians 6:10 through 12. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Guys, we need to know who we're fighting, right? What we're up against. So if you want more on this scripture, go check out the spiritual kickoff that released 2 days ago, back on Monday, right before this one. I really unpacked that scripture, gave you some insight, gave you some ideas to consider when it comes to this topic, to be able to serve well, and to be ready to fight the battle. So for today, guys, I'm so excited. We have with us Mr. Larry Hagner. Okay, now Larry, he's phenomenal. What he has going on, he created the Dad Edge podcast. Okay, he's been featured on many different podcasts. He's like one of the top dad podcasts on iTunes. You know, his show over 5 million downloads. Unreal. He's got 2 best-selling books, and you know he lives in St. Louis with his wife, and they have 4 boys. So he has a lot going on. We're going to be unpacking a lot of stuff, the things that he's learned, the things that he's shared with other people. So I'm so excited to have him on. I'm so excited. He's going to bring it. So just get ready to sharpen your dad edge here with Larry Hagner. Larry Hagner, welcome to the Line Within Us. How you doing today, sir?
What's going on? Man, it's so good to be here. And I love the title of your show.
Well, appreciate that. I mean, it's pretty cool. A lot of guys, I think it resonates with the guys out there. So, I mean, they like that lion, right?
Right. That is right. Yeah, we do like the lion. Like, we're like, yes, that's masculine, that's powerful, that's leadership, that's protection. Right. Yeah, we resonate with that.
It resonates, my friend. And I'm so excited today because your show, I love your show, The Dad Edge. And I've already, talked about it with our guys. It's going to be synced up in our show notes for the guys to check out. Because if you're subscribing to the Line Within Us and you're not subscribing to The Dad Edge, you're missing out. So like fix that now. Right. But, Larry, I gave an intro, just based off the information that was provided. But man, that's just me reading words. I love to hear people's story just directly from them. So, man, give our listeners a little bit about your origin. What's going on?
Yeah, so I am the host and founder of the Dad Edge podcast and the Dad Edge Alliance. Dad Edge podcast is obviously our podcast. Dad Edge Alliance is our mastermind community for men, husbands, and fathers who want to elevate their marriages, create better connection with their kids, optimize their physical, mental, emotional health, and be a more effective leader within themselves, within their family, within their faith. I don't shy away from that. I know that this is obviously your faith-based podcast. And that is the mission, my friend. And we teach men true tactical skills as it relates to all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I love all the areas that you touch on in the faith component of it for sure. And, one thing, Larry, maybe just to get your take on it out the gate, when you think about just Christianity in the church, sometimes being masculine, that's just not theirs. It's a little bit more feminized. Or do you hear that from your community at all, from trying to, how can I as a man or a dad plug in and be able to serve, in a church setting today? Because things is just they've really changed.
So in a church setting?
Yeah. Or just about not your faith, just in general. Yeah.
So my faith in general, and just, to answer that question, I mean, so my personal journey with faith and leadership, to be honest, up until about 2 years ago, I had more of an arm's length relationship with God, and meaning like I wasn't the most prayerful person in the world. I identified myself as a follower. I identified myself as a churchgoer because I was in church, but I was sort of like half in, half out. But I realized it, but I didn't. And when you have really great mentors in your life, like I do, that look out for you in your best interest, that call you out on things. I had a spiritual mentor of mine a couple of years back really call me out on some things, and I helped me identify that I really wasn't being a good spiritual leader for my family. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just more or less not being effective. And he
Mhm.
really challenged me on that. And I really dove into my faith and actually was a part of a program called Operation Timothy, where I went through a 2-year Bible study with a mentor. I was a Timothy. My mentor was my Paul, and really got in touch with my faith and got really in depth with it. Had a better understanding of who Jesus Christ is, who God is, and I've really implemented that not only in my brand but within my family. And it is just it's brought so much fulfillment to what I'm doing. I mean, everything I was doing was already fulfilling, but now I
Yeah.
would say that fulfillment is 10x.
Man, that's so crazy because I mean, so Operation Timothy, I actually wrote a article recently. It's on the line within us, and I titled it "Find Your Paul, Find Your Barnabas, Find Your Timothy." And so far as building, like we call it your Lions Den, your men's group, because we need to be a Paul in somebody's life. We need to be a Timothy. We need to find a Barnabas, and you can be all three at the same time in different people. Depending on the scenario. So I'm just curious, man. Maybe talk a little bit about that Operation Timothy program. First of all, how'd you find that spiritual mentor? Because I feel like guys, we search some mentors out there to help us in our career and to make money and do stuff like that. But sometimes finding a spiritual mentor is, I don't know if it's intimidating or we just don't think about it. I'm curious on how that actually worked out.
Yeah, so luckily, my spiritual mentor was very unexpected.
Okay.
I met a man here locally here in St. Louis who ran an organization called St. Louis Mastermind, and it was for business owners. But believe it or not, it was actually mostly for people in the mortgage and real estate space. I'm in neither one of those. Well, I invest in a little bit of real estate, but I'm not to the degree that obviously he caters to.
Mhm.
And he ran this networking group called St. Louis Mastermind, and it was basically to help businesses that had to do with real estate in some way, shape, or form come together in a culture that was around generosity,
Mhm.
which I thought was fascinating. Because if you go to most networking events, usually it comes from a very selfish place of like, hey, how can I leverage these relationships to grow my business? His was the opposite. It was like, how can I give more and do more for other people? And what would naturally happen is the law of reciprocity would happen.
Mhm.
You're helping people, and then naturally they want to help you. So I met this gentleman named Brian who was running this. He was the vice president of mortgages for a big bank here in St. Louis, and I was really taken back because once a month, the third Thursday of every month, there were hundreds of people that would come to this event. Brian would always have it was an hour and a half long. He'd always have a speaker, and he would speak, and he would teach like some lessons on how to connect with people and that kind of thing. And I just love this guy. And he became a really big fan of what I did over at Dad Edge, and he actually invited me to speak at one of his events, and we became really good friends. And it wasn't until he saw me posting some things online about the podcast, and to be quite honest, I was using language on my podcast that I don't use anymore, and even in my posts. And he sat me down for coffee one day, and he said, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your work, and I consider us friends. And I've noticed that you're very blunt and bold, and some of the language you use, I don't know if it's really in line with who you are as a man and who you are
Mhm.
as what you stand for. And quite frankly, I think what you're trying to do is gain the attention of people, and you think the best way to do that is by using language that isn't really in line with you." And I really thought about that, and I was like, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I wasn't trying to get negative attention. I just noticed that other podcast hosts and people who hosted big platforms were kind of like more like yelling in your face type thing.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't go to that degree at all,
Mhm.
but I would be a little bit more forceful, a little bit more direct. And even when I would do that, it didn't feel so much like me. I can be forceful and I can be direct, but it's not a part of me that I like to leverage too often.
Mhm.
And I was using language that wasn't in line with me. And that's where you have people that truly care about you. And he basically just said, he sat me down. And he's like, "Well, how's your relationship with Christ?" And to be honest, I was like, "Come on, man. Like, I don't want to have this conversation." I was kind of upset about it. Like, but long story short, that conversation and that coffee really landed with me. Not the coffee, the conversation over
Right.
coffee.
Right.
And I thought about it, and I reached back out to Brian, and I thanked him for being so bold and brave and calling me out, because I know that that was actually difficult for him. It wasn't even a month later I got this calendar request, said, "Brian Brian McCrae is inviting you to be a part of Operation Timothy as your Paul." And I knew what Operation Timothy was because I'm also a part of another organization that Brian and I are part of called CBMC, which is Christian Businessmen Connect here in St. Louis. Once every quarter, 350 men come together for a speaker and a breakfast, prayerfully and in a Christian atmosphere. And we learn how to elevate each other in our businesses through the lens of Christ and our calling. And they offer that program, and it's totally free. All you have to do is give your time, and then your mentor, your Paul, is giving his time. And I went through that process, and it took 2 years, and I just graduated from it back in May. And it has been a total game changer. And what I can tell you now to finish the story is being a spiritual leader means you have to lead your family as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
Mm-hmm.
4 boys, 16, 14, 8, and 6. And especially my 2 older boys are they're really into their faith. And to be honest, that's probably a blessing because I haven't been the best at leading them. I'm better now. My 16-year-old asked me, he's like, I really want to do this Operation Timothy that you've been doing. And you don't get a 16-year-old that asks you that. And as soon as I graduated, I got the blessing from my mentor, Paul, or Brian, who is my Paul. And I am now currently taking Ethan, my oldest, through Operation Timothy, and we're a quarter of the way through.
Oh, that is
And
so
it's
awesome.
it's been awesome.
So you're his Paul,
Correct.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was my follow up. Are you going to be a Paul? So you've already figured that out, and it's your son.
Correct. Yeah.
Man, that's going to lead to some incredible conversations and opportunities for you guys to grow just your dad son relationship to a level that most dads can't even imagine.
Yeah. I agree.
So is it like a structured program of like, here's the scripture you go through, and then here maybe like questions just to kind of keep the conversation going? I'm sure it's some type of structure to it.
Very, very structured. So it's all online.
Okay.
And what you basically do is there's 3 quote unquote books, and each book, modules, whatever you want to call it, each book is titled a certain thing. They have 6 to 7 chapters. In each book out of the 3, there's probably 100 questions,
Oh
easy.
wow.
So call it 300 reflective questions. And basically what you do is you're going through scripture, you're going through study, and then there's these reflective questions that you answer. And basically what your Paul does is he guides you through those answers. Not that but so, like, for instance, um one of the reflective questions is, if I can remember, one would be, Jesus suffered and died on the cross, right? What does this say about Jesus Christ? What does this say about humanity? What does this even say about God to give up his only
Mm,
son? What are your thoughts on that? And to have those reflective questions like that, where you look at faith not as like the surface level thing, but you actually get in the trenches of it, right? And you really understand, like, I mean, think about that one thing for a second. This is
yeah.
the way I explained it to my son. God gave his only son because he loved us so much. And I never really understood that. I have 12 years of Catholic, private school education. I've always been Catholic, but to be honest, I never really got that.
Hmm.
And the way my mentor explained it to me, he's like, Larry, think about that for a second. Think of you loving your neighborhood so much that you would sacrifice Ethan for the sake of saving them from hell.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I'd never do that.
Not
He's
happening.
like, right.
Right.
He's like, exactly. He's like, so think about, if we ever doubt, is God a loving God? Like, think about that.
Yeah.
There's also there's this part of God that's so empathetic, that's so compassionate, that's so forgiving, that, can you imagine, that had to have hurt God to see his son die?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus wasn't the only one that suffered. And then you start to look at the lens of like, wow, he loves me that much.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought of it that way. Because I
Uh-huh.
think we think about those things on a very surface level way. And then we think about them through that lens of like, well, I could never do that. Well, of course you
Right.
couldn't. Right. Yeah.
Man, that is awesome. Well, definitely, if there's a way, maybe we can sync up a link or something to some of those resources, because it sounds like that'd be something guys could jump all over. And
Yeah.
for your younger kids, man, I like staying on the kid thing while we're there. Any advice? What are you doing there to lead them? Because what did you say? They're 4 and 6. Was that how old
Yeah.
you? Yes,
Yeah.
that's a different conversation versus, it sounds like Ethan's 16, right? So I mean, how are you mentoring and shepherding them, in your journey?
Well, so yeah, it's totally different, right? So, with my 14 and 16-year-old, it's the conversations are very different,
Mhm.
especially my 16-year-old even versus my 14-year-old right now because you're supposed to do this discipleship on a one-on-one basis, right? So
Mhm.
I could take both Ethan and Mason through it, but I choose to take them through it separately. And because I will be taking Mason through it as well, and on all four boys. But my conversations with Mason, my 14-year-old, are a little different than they are with Ethan. Ethan, it's now way more in depth.
Right.
And then with my 6 and 8-year-old, it really is more of a fun approach, right? So
Okay.
like my 8-year-old in particular, like instead of reading a bedtime story, we read like his kid Bible.
Yeah.
And he's highly entertained by that. He likes it. He wants it. He wants to hear stories of David and Moses. And,
Yeah.
he finds them very entertaining. And I am in my humble opinion, if he's entertained and he enjoys it through that lens right now, then so be it. And I'm good with that.
Yeah. No kidding. So basically, you meet them where they're at, and you use material that's
Totally.
appropriate for them, and it resonates. And a lot of those kid Bibles, they're solid. I mean, it's good, solid instruction, but a lot of them have good illustrations and things like that too. That can just have make that conversation just flow.
Correct.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, let's take a quick break, Larry, and then we'll jump back because I want to ask you something around for dads out there like myself, and I struggle with this one area. So I'm anxious to get your opinion on it because I know you're an expert here. So we'll be right back. Most men know what it's like to do life in a vacuum and feel isolated on the journey. We believe every man needs a community to help them become the men they were created to be. More than just a website or podcast, we are a community of Christian men who are committed to supporting and encouraging one another on our journey to become the best versions of ourselves. We are men who have fought the good fight and come out victorious. The lion within us is here to help you stop feeling lost, defeated, and alone. Instead, find community and connection with other men that will help you achieve your goals, live a life of purpose, and be the leader God intends you to be. Visit thelionwithin.us to join the new growing Lions Den community today. The question I want to talk to you about, Larry, is dads, when we teach stuff like this or we teach stuff in general, sometimes we run out of patience. We're beating our head against the wall. We feel like nothing's clicking. And I know you teach a lot in your show and different resources around patience. So, maybe give some guidance, some insight to the listeners out there who struggle with that area. How do you get started? What's some things that they can do to start improving that area to have more patience in their life?
Thanks for the question. I've been doing this work now for, gosh, since 2013, so almost 10 years now. And what I can tell you is, I've stood nose to nose, toes to toes, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of men at this point,
Mm-hmm.
through our mastermind program, through our events, through podcasting. And they were, I know the minds and the hearts of men, and I know what they struggle with without a doubt. I can say it now before they can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most common themes that I've heard over and over and over and over again, like, hey, when I ask a man, what do you struggle when it comes to your kids, what do you struggle with most? It's always patience, right? And I I found that this was such a crucible for men that I was like, I took the almost 1,000 episodes of podcasting that we have to date, all the books that I've read, everything I've learned in the mastermind, talking to experts, and basically came up with um, 6 different skills that we can actually learn and utilize for patience, for actually achieving and creating more patience with our kids. And to be quite honest, it's not just with our kids, it's with the man that looks in the mirror at himself
Yeah.
every day, because
Right.
truly that's where the patience starts,
Right.
is with the man, right? It doesn't start with the thing that's challenging the man. It actually starts with the man, right? It
Mm-hmm.
starts with the voice between our two ears and in our heart. So let's first talk about what patience really is.
Okay.
Patience is actually emotional resilience. It's just packaged up and bottled just a little bit differently. When we think about losing our patience with our kids, what's really happening is we don't have the skill set to be more resilient with our kids.
Mm.
And usually what happens is when we run out of patience, what really means is we've run out of the skill set to achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve. So, like, for instance, if your kid is throwing an absolute tantrum, right, in the grocery store, and you can't control them no matter what you do, you're not losing your patience with the kid because the kid is going to be the kid. I mean, we can't,
Mhm.
kids are going to throw a tantrum. What's really happening in that moment is we don't know what to do. So we get really, really upset and then we yell and we scream and then we say something we don't want to do or say something we don't mean. We do something we don't want to do. And then we have that shame and that regret and that guilt afterwards. Like, oh, gosh, I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
So I'll give you a perfect example. So, well, first of all, let me back up before I share the story. If you can create if you can create the skill of creating more emotional resilience in your life, you will be
Mm.
more patient with your kids.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, here's the other thing too. Many of us think that having more patience is a feeling. And here's the other thing too. Here's the other rub. If we don't have the patience that we expect out of ourselves, we view ourselves as weak. We don't view ourselves as a man. We don't view ourselves as a strong man. Like there's a lot of stories we tell ourselves that we are unfit for the job.
Right.
When we lose our patience. So there's that going on too. So that's one thing I want to get out there. Patience is not a feeling. It's not.
Mm.
It's a skill. It's a skill. It's an absolute skill. And if you don't believe me, I've interviewed, I think, 34 Navy SEALs on the podcast. One of the things that they teach a Navy SEAL through BUDS is physical and emotional resilience. That's what they teach them. No SEAL really comes in with that high level of emotional resilience as they do
Mm.
when they graduate, right?
Mhm.
That's part of the reason why out of 195 candidates in buds, 19 of them will graduate, right? Because
Mm.
not all of them can even get through it. But those 19 that graduate learn the skill, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about really quickly. Let me share a story.
Okay.
Just because I teach this stuff, that doesn't mean I execute it flawlessly. I fall flat on my face, sometimes every day, right?
Right.
So my 14-year-old, for years, he kind of had this really bad habit of leaving his stuff everywhere. Shoes, hats, laundry, trash, bowls, dishes, glasses, everything everywhere. And it would piss me off. Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, my God, like, pick up after yourself for the love of God. Right. And I
Right.
would like yell at him and it would drive me crazy. And so now, since he's been doing that for so long, I now view him through this lens of he is the kid that leaves stuff behind. Now,
Uh-huh.
what I can tell you is, unfortunately, that label isn't fair to him. It
Right.
truly isn't, especially not anymore. He has gotten so much better with this stuff, right? But we see what we want to see and we perceive what we want to perceive because we label kids the way we do. So, like, because I label them that way, that's what I look for.
Right.
So, just the other day, I literally went downstairs. He had a Gatorade bottle and an empty Lunchable tray on the floor. And I didn't know how long it had been there, and the story I was telling myself, it had been left there, and I looked at him and I blew up, and I was like, "Dude, what is this on the ground?"
Right.
He's like, "Yeah, I left that." And I was like, "Dude, why do you do this all the time?" I was like, "You know that this is not cool." I was like, "This is our environment. You share our environment with the rest of the people in this home by leaving your trash on the floor for somebody else to either see it or pick it up is so disrespectful." And I was like, "And this pisses me off."
Yeah.
And I just yelled at him. I was like, "Pick it up." And he like literally I saw my son go from 14 to 35 years old in an instant. And he looked at me and he immediately acted older than me, and rightfully so. He looked at me and he goes, "I know you're angry. And I know I do this every now and again, but I've gotten so much better at it. And you don't have to yell at me. Why do you always have to yell at me? Like, if you just ask me just calmly, I'll do it." And then my
Mm.
ego fired and I
Uh-huh.
lost my patience even more because there's that part of me and I was losing my patience. That ego part of me fired up because I'm like, who does this kid think he is? Right.
Yeah.
And I fired back at him. I said, if you pick it up, I wouldn't have to ask. And he's like, I understand that. He goes, but it's just the way you treat me sometimes. And when he said, it's just the way you treat me sometimes, I was like,
Mm.
I just walked away from the situation because I knew he was still in the wrong, right? Because he shouldn't have left his trash behind. But I also knew he was very right.
Right.
And you reach these points depending on your kids' ages where you know, I don't want to say you look at them as peers, but they teach you things
Mhm.
about yourself and about life. And I thought to myself, he's absolutely right. And he has been better about picking this up and he's going to make mistakes. But how the voice that I use with him and the way that I treat him is absolutely going to be the voice in his head.
Mhm.
And I went to him later that day and I said, I'm sorry. You know, you were right. I was like, you don't deserve to be yelled at like that.
Yeah.
And even though we both know that what you did was wrong, right? And he's like, yeah, it was wrong. He's like, I should have picked it up. And I said, I was wrong by the way I spoke to you.
Mm.
And I said, listen, just like you're trying to, you're 14 and trying to figure out how to be a 14-year-old and try to figure out how to transition from eighth grade to freshman year next year and all these things going on with your girlfriend and dynamics with your friends. You're trying to figure out life. Well, I'm 46 and I'm still trying to figure out how to raise 4 boys. And some days I get it right. Some days I fall flat on my face and I'm sorry.
Right.
And today I fell on my face. I said, can we make an agreement? And he said, yeah. I said, the agreement is this. If I see trash going on, I'm not going to yell at you anymore. I'll ask. And I'll ask very nicely. I will hold up my end of the deal.
Right.
On your end of the deal, would you mind making sure that you're doing this more often? Absolutely. So here that was 2 days ago. And, he needed to clean his room the other day or yesterday. They were he's like, "Hey, my room's clean." I went down there. It was really disastrous, and he knew it was still.
Right.
And I looked at him, I said, "Hey, Mason," I go, "I noticed that, you still have bowls of popcorn, on your bed on your bed frame, on your headboard. You've got some Gatorade bottles on the floor, and your laundry's not folded. Would you mind doing that before we say that this room is clean?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can do that." And I go, "Hey, see what I did there?" And he goes, "I saw what you did." Which before I'd be like, "You think this room is clean? Are you
Right.
kidding me right now?" Like that's the way I would have talked to him.
Right.
And there was another thing that happened last night that I again spoke to him very gently, and I was like, "Hey, did you see what I did there right there? I'm in line with our agreement." He's like, "I did."
Right.
So yeah, that's maybe an example of being more patient. But in that moment, my son taught me that skill that I needed to be like, "Hey, when you want to yell at me, could you just ask me with a nice voice?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Regardless of how I feel, right?
Right.
Regardless of how angry I am, I
Right.
can still use that skill.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm curious too. You two words that popped out of that story that I think men in general, I personally do too. And I'm raising nothing but girls. Okay, so I'm the opposite side. So I have to be extra careful because the tone that I use, just like it really it can paint a very bad picture of me in their eyes. So I have to be very careful there. But the two words that jumped out, man, I'm sorry. And you said those words, and it's oftentimes as men and fathers in particular, dads, it it's hard for us to say that to our kids, but I think they need to hear it more. So, any advice on hey, when we need to actually step up and use those words and recognize that hey, we don't have this all figured out. We're learning as we go too.
I actually think that's one of the most powerful things. I don't know how you were raised, but the way I was raised is I'm mom, you're the kid, I'm right, you're wrong.
Mm,
Like and literally it was sometimes those words. And or if I would challenge my mom and be like, "Hey, like why is this decision being made?" "Well, I'm the mom, you're the kid, that's why. Shut
uh,
up."
uh-huh.
Right? And there was never an I'm sorry. There was never I was brought up with there was never owning any wrongdoings or mistakes. And what I can tell you is that when we I'm not good at a lot, Chris. I'm just not when it comes to this. Like I'm still trying to figure it out.
Mm,
But there is one thing I am good at.
okay.
And that is when I make a mistake, I do own it and I do apologize.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think when we do that, when we own it and we apologize, we actually I never knew this when I was doing it, but I've noticed my 16-year-old, 14-year-old, my 8-year-old, I think my 6-year-old is still kind of young. Uh, they're like the first to usually apologize as well. Like, "Hey, I'm sorry I did that. I shouldn't have done that."
Right.
Can you forgive me? And I think like that's so mature. And I'm like, man, this is pretty awesome. Like, where do they get that from? And I don't want to say it's all me. My wife does the same thing. But I think when we own something like that, or we tell our kids, I don't have this all figured out,
Right.
it humanly connects us as human beings. Like, yeah, I'm dad and you're kid and I'm dad, but we're all insanely flawed and imperfect, and we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of our kids, they put us on this pedestal, right? Well, he's even though he's acting the way he is, he's still got to be right because he's dad. And I don't necessarily buy into that,
Right.
because there are certain behaviors that we have and do that are wrong from time to time, and we can teach that humility when when we own our mistakes, even when we make mistakes as parents.
Right. Do you think we're too hard on ourselves too? Like yeah, it's one thing to own it, but sometimes guys, we just think that we don't want to show that flaw. We don't want to show that weakness. So maybe they view it as weak. Is that an area that you think guys really struggle with?
Oh, totally. It's really hard for us to own things because we think it's a sign of weakness. We
Uh-huh.
think it's a sign of like, well, if I admit this, then I'm basically telling the world, my kids, my wife, that I made this mistake, and they're going to view me differently and horribly. It's actually the opposite. We actually earn more trust, respect, and credibility when people know, especially people in our lives like our kids, how aware of ourselves we actually are. We all know those people, Chris, right, in our lives where um, those people, there's an excuse for everything, right? Even if
Mhm.
there's wrongdoing, it was somebody else's fault, whatever else, and they have no ownership whatsoever. How much do we actually respect that person?
Mm.
How much do we actually even trust that person?
Right.
How much, even like an everyday conversation, is this person even aware of this conversation and what we're talking about? They're not even aware of themselves. These are the things that kind of go through our mind. We don't really say them out loud. But when someone fully owns what they've done and apologizes for it and articulates, this is what I did wrong. This is probably how I made you feel. This is what I'm going to do differently. And I'm asking for your forgiveness. I mean, how much more do we like that person? How much more credibility do we get? Now there's a limit, right? If someone, you know, it's kind of like goes back to like the man who beats his wife, right? And then suddenly
Mm.
apologizes and then beats her again and then apologizes again and beats her again. That's different.
Right.
This, what I'm talking about, is full ownership of making mistakes, but actually then doing the work and effort to pivot to correct, right?
Right. Right. Man, that's powerful stuff right there, Larry. Let's take. I want to keep digging a little bit further now. Maybe get some more insight on the marriage side of this with you, because
Yeah.
I mean we're trying to sharpen dads, and it's not just the kids, right? We got to work on the marriage. We'll take a quick break now. I want to get your insight there. I get a chance to talk to guys every week, and one consistent struggle that keeps rising is the lack of community. To address this, we created the Lions Den to start building a community of Christian brothers with the aim of serving them resources to combat the darkness. We are working hard to bring encouragement, inspiration, and tips to help you be the leader you're predestined to be. As part of the Lions Den, you'll also be first in line with new opportunities, events, and resources that are designed to serve you in your journey. So hop over to the lionwithin.us to sign up for the Lions Den for free. That's the lionwithin.us and become a member of the Lions Den today. Talk to us about marriage. I know you really in your book, The Dad Edge, you talk about, better ways to connect with our wives and tips that guys can really do to form a better union, because it's a covenant and you have to constantly be working at it. So just want to kind of give you an open
Yeah.
platform here for wherever you'd like to go to share with our listeners.
I sure would. And do you mind if I just share a resource with you on patience real quick before we jump
Absolutely.
off on that? So, guys, as you know, I I have a course on this. I have a course on patience. I love your audience. Love what you're doing here. If you guys want to go take the course on patience, what I'll do is I'll create a coupon code for you guys. If you go to thedadedge.com/patience, type in the coupon code lion, like the
Yep.
animal, like this podcast,
Right.
lion. I'll knock 70% off of the course. Um, I want this information out there. We sell the course for $200, but we'll knock 70% off for your audience if you guys want access to it. What I can tell you, it's a 40-minute course. It will give you gems. It'll give you the skills. It'll give you 6 distinct skills that you can use right
Yeah.
after you're done with the course. So if you want that, you can have it.
Hey, we'll put that in
Uh,
the show notes for listeners too. So you guys go there. We'll make sure that's all synced up for you, Larry. And I thank you. That's
yeah.
amazing. That's just so generous of you.
Yeah, I've never given 70% off, but like, hey, call it a God thing. But I do, I threw the number out there. It's out there now, so we're just going to do it. But yeah, if you guys want that, you can have it. Yeah, and marriage. And at the end of the show, I'll give you guys, we actually have 2 free resources, totally free for marriage. But yeah,
Okay.
let's talk about marriage. The number one problem, and I don't know if you want to go in this direction, if you want to go in a different direction, I'm totally cool with that.
So you.
But just as I asked fathers, what's the one thing that just drives you crazy when it comes to your kids? It's always patience. Now, marriage is a different story.
Okay.
When I say, when you think of marriage, what is the number one thing you want to improve? And Chris, what do you think it is?
Uh, Communication would probably comes up pretty common with the guys I talk to, man.
That is it. Communication. And no, I didn't pay Chris. I didn't put anything in the chat. He said it. Communication. Now, when I ask, man, okay, when you think about communication, what needs to happen? I hear 2 adjectives. I want more communication and I want better
I was
communication.
going to say more and
Now,
better. That's right. You're
See,
reading
I told-
my mind. This
yeah,
is scary. Okay. All right.
yeah. So that's a great. So let's talk about more for a second. So if I ask a guy, okay, great. So if you had more communication, what would you do with it?
Mhm.
And then they're like, well, we would talk more. Like, well, what about?
Mhm.
Well, we would talk more. And I'm like, well, what would more get you? More is not measurable. More is just more than what we have now, but more isn't always better, right?
Uh-huh.
More calories doesn't mean better fitness, right?
Right.
And you reach a point of no return too if you're working out and training weights. Like training more is there's a point of no return,
Yeah.
right? A point of no more ROI.
Right.
So more is not necessarily better. And and then you'll get men that say, "Well, I want better communication." Okay, well, what does that look like? What does better communication look like? And then they'll just be like, "Well, it's better." I'm like, well, better than what? Well, better than it is today. Well, how do you measure it?
Right.
I don't know. It's just better. Like, can't articulate it, right? So basically, this is like if you go to your doctor, right, and you get routine blood work done. And I'm your doctor, Chris, and I sit down with you. I'm like, Chris, have a seat. Chris, I'm looking over your blood work here, and I need you to get in better health.
Yeah.
And I need you to do more for your health.
Mhm.
What questions would you have for me?
I'd just be rattling them off. Okay, where do I start? What do I need to do? What
Yeah.
does my intake need to look like? Yeah. I mean, just
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, wait a second. Do I have cancer? Do I have diabetes? Do I have high cholesterol? Like, do I have ADHD? Like, what? Right.
Yeah.
Not that you can get that through blood work, but, and so you get it though. It's really identifying what's happening here, right? So what I do is I teach 9 distinct skills within communication, right? And there's what I like to call the big 3,
Okay.
right? And the big 3 meaning there's 3 overarching skill sets and then there's 3 micro skill sets underneath of those things. So like let's talk about all 3 just real quickly here.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about here is number 1 skill is called tactical empathy. This is a skill set that I learned from Chris Voss, but we've tweaked it quite a bit into marriage. Tactical empathy is using things like emotional labels, mirroring, and your voice tone, right? Those are 3 very distinct skill sets. Emotional labels is helping your wife identify what she's feeling. Feels
Oh.
like you're overwhelmed, right? Wow, feels like you're angry, right?
Mhm.
Sounds like you're sad. Identifying an emotion. When you do that, she feels seen, she feels heard, and she feels safe. Mirroring is another skill. Anytime you want to ask the question why, you mirror somebody. I'll give you an example. If you think I'm crazy, check this out. So, Chris, if I were to let's just say you and I were buddies.
Yeah.
We are buddies, but we're hanging out, right? I'm like, hey man, like how's everything been? And you're like, dude, my freaking kids are driving me crazy. Now, if I were to be like, why? Why are your kids driving you crazy?
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm genuinely curious, but me asking, like, why is that driving you crazy? How did that feel when I was like, why are your kids driving you crazy?
Uh, Someone put me on the spot.
Yeah,
just not an attack, but definitely my guard is up a little bit. My defenses are up. Yeah.
exactly. The 3-letter word "why" will actually put someone subconsciously on the defense.
Yeah.
It literally goes back to when we're a 2-year-old kid, be like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you crying?"
Right.
And you're just like, "My gosh," so the word "why" is a defensive word.
Hmm.
If you can take that 3-letter word out of your vocabulary and use mirroring, so, like, if I were to say, "Hey, Chris, how are things going?" You're like, "Oh my gosh, man, my kids are driving me crazy." I'm like, "Your kids are driving you crazy?" Now, if I were just to simply repeat those words to you in a voice tone of curiosity, how did that land
Oh yeah.
compared to, "Why are your kids driving you crazy?"
Yeah. So much softer. I'm ready to tell you now. Right.
You are. Using mirroring is a very powerful tool with communication because what it demonstrates is I heard every word that you said. In fact, so much so I'm repeating your words and I'm
Hmm.
doing it in a voice tone that I'm inviting you to tell me more. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm inviting you. Hey man, I want to know more about this. It's a very powerful tool. The other thing too is voice tone. You can change 93 everyone knows 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Hmm.
Well, 90% of conflicts happen because of voice tone. And if you don't believe me, um, just try it. So, like, for instance, even if I were to use the why question, like if I were to say, "Why are your kids driving you crazy?"
Yeah.
It lands a lot different than like, "Oh man, well, like, why are they driving you crazy?"
Hmm.
I mean, you feel
You
the
feel it.
difference, just same words, right?
Yep.
What did that feel like?
Oh yeah. So much softer. Like the second time you genuinely care. I mean,
Yeah,
you're being empathetic. You're wanting to dig deeper. Versus the first time, it's I'm on my heels. My defenses are up.
exactly. So that under tactical empathy as it relates to communication in marriage, a lot of guys are more like more and better. Well, guess what? That's going to get you more communication because of the way that you're creating the environment. We call that creating an environment of psychological safety
Hmm.
where the person wants to tell you more.
Right.
Like, I don't know how often, Chris, you come across to me as I guarantee people in your life have said to you, Chris, I don't know what it is about you, but I feel like I can tell you anything.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yes, sir.
Of course you have. Yeah, you put that off very, very well. Well, guess what? Whether you know it or not, most people don't even realize what they're doing. Whether you know it or not, you have a natural ability to create an environment of psychological safety where people feel comfortable telling you
Hmm.
telling you anything. In fact, I would bet, and you've probably experienced this yourself, people have walked away from a conversation with you, or you've walked away from a conversation with somebody else, be like, I can't believe I told them that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because we experience when people create an environment of psychological safety for us.
Right.
Well, guess what? We can do that in our marriages. Your wife has 3 basic needs. She needs to feel seen, she needs to feel heard, and she needs to feel safe.
Right.
When you use those 3 skill sets with your voice tone, mirroring, and labeling, those are the 3 needs you fulfill. So when guys ask me, "I want better and more," that's gonna get you better and more. And that's just 3 out of the 9 that I teach. The one final thing that I'll say is this as well, because I want to go over one more skill set.
Okay.
I teach out of the big 3, there's tactical empathy, then there's intimacy. Intimacy is developing an environment of psychological safety, identifying core values, and understanding your wife's love language.
Yeah.
Curiosity and appreciation is the third out of the big 3, and that's generative questions. And that's what I'm going to go over, creating an environment and a vision for your marriage. Now, real quick, I want to go over, if you're cool with it, or unless I'm too long winded.
No. And you
Okay.
say, was it curiosity and appreciation? That's the third one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Curiosity and appreciation. So let me just talk about curiosity and appreciation so guys understand it. Curiosity and appreciation is, think of when you're in college or when you were in school. The teacher is teaching you something, or maybe like even Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or something like that,
Hmm.
like most guys can relate to. When you're in an environment where you're at the BJJ dojo, you are in a mindset of curiosity and appreciation because you want to learn. You
Hmm.
want to learn these moves, right? You want to learn the rear naked choke. You're like a kid, like just like tell me the information. I want to know how to do it. It's very different than when people go to conversations, because when people go to conversations, they actually go to most conversations with the exact opposite, which is called expectation and agenda. Perfect example is, I'm going to go talk to my wife. I have an agenda of what I want to talk to her about, and I have an expectation of how I want that thing to go.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't align, if it doesn't go in my expectations, I'm defensive and
Mm.
even resentful. So, like, I think one topic that most guys can relate to is if you could get your wife to have sex, right?
Mhm.
So like my agenda is to talk to her about having sex tonight. My expectation is we're going to have sex. And if that doesn't happen, we usually get upset.
Mhm.
Now, we can come to conversations with what we call curiosity and appreciation, where we're now willing to learn. And the way to do people feel that. I mean, Chris, have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and you wholeheartedly feel I'm on their agenda and they want a certain outcome with me? I know they do. I mean, I think the easiest way to really relate to that is being in a sales situation.
Yeah, I think so. Just go on LinkedIn and get connected with anybody. You'll get pitched like within
Yep,
an hour.
exactly. Exactly. Now, curiosity and appreciation is I have genuine curiosity about you.
Yeah.
It's not to sell you anything,
Right.
it's to learn about you.
Right.
So there's a skill that I teach. It's called generative questions.
Okay.
It's probably one of the more powerful skills. Out of labels, mirrors, and voice tone, generative questions is these are the most these are the four most powerful skills. Generative questions. Let's first talk about what they are. Actually, let's talk about what a poor question is. Poor question is how was your day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's or your kids. How was school,
Mhm.
right? So those are questions that the other person can answer with one word, and they don't even have to think about it.
Fine. Yeah.
Fine, good, busy.
Yep.
They create no depth.
Yep.
They create no psychological safety. The other person doesn't even know if you really truly care.
Right.
They're just like, I get asked this question every day.
Right.
A generative question is a question where the person has to generate ideas. They have to generate reflection. They have to generate maybe a vision if it's a future based generative question.
Right.
But what it does is it creates connection, intimacy, and better communication. So I'll give you an example. Instead of asking my wife, how was your day? I might be like, what was the best part of your day today?
Yeah.
Or what was a high point moment for you today that made you smile? What was a part of your day that made you laugh? What was a part of as you reflect upon your day, what was something that brought you joy?
Mhm.
Now, she can't answer fine, good, busy, or crazy or overwhelmed.
Right.
She has to be like, I talked to my mom today.
Mhm.
And I haven't talked to my mom in 2 weeks. It was so good to catch up with her. Oh, that's yeah. Of course that brought you so much joy. Tell me more about that. Now, what I just did there is I also weaved in a label.
Yeah.
Of course, that brought you so much joy. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And I inviting her to tell me more. So generative questions are can be three different things: the best of the past, the best of the future, and I'm sorry, best of the past, best of the present, best of the future.
Okay.
And you can always do either one. So, like for instance, you can say, um, "What was the best part of your day today?" Right? That is, oh my god, it's so funny. As I'm sitting here taking you through this, my wife over text message just mirrored me. It's so funny. I'll get that in
That's
a
awesome.
second. Yeah, because she knows this stuff. But you can also simply so the best of the past would be like, what was the best part of your day today, right?
Right.
Um, what's a feeling that you have right now that's bringing you joy? That's a best part of the present. As you think about tomorrow, what are you most excited about?
Yeah.
That's the best of the future. So you can tweak these either way. And what those do is like I said, when the person has to story tell,
Yeah.
you know, and they have to create a vision or tell you something like that. And you can also do this with challenges. What was something that challenged you today? What was something that was really hard for you today?
Yeah.
You're inviting that person into their world and they have to story tell. And that's when people feel super connected. So if you can understand the skill of generative questions and asking your wife better questions, that one skill set in and of itself will get you more and better. Now, I always encourage guys, learn the other eight,
Yeah.
but that's a great start.
Right. Do they always typically start? I noticed you shifted from like versus how is your day to a lot of what because that really drives the question better. So is it more like a what or when and like openings to those
Absolutely.
questions? Is that part of the strategy?
It's always an open ended question.
Right.
And I usually also like to tie it to something that's emotional, right? Something that they have to feel, right?
Gotcha.
Along with it. I don't, I try to stay away from why.
Right.
So, like, I don't say, why was that meaningful? Oh, tell me more about that.
Okay.
Because again, even though you use why as a genuine word, tell me you're going to get the same, but the person is going to feel better giving you the information
Right.
if it's an invite versus a why.
Hmm. No doubt. So kind of just steer clear of that, but just dig in and have that. I love how you call it curiosity, because if you're naturally curious, that's why I like podcasting too, because I have a curious
Yeah,
personality. But if you
me
show
too.
that, it just, to me, it just opens up the floodgates for communication to occur.
It totally does.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now you mentioned there was another resource, because I don't want to leave the
Yeah,
marriage thing that you had for guys that want to improve their communication in their marriages. You want to mention that?
absolutely. So I've got two free resources for men. One is an email series, and the other one's actually video training. So let me take the video training first, because I just talked about generative questions.
Mhm.
So it'd probably be just super appropriate just to point guys in the direction of that.
Okay.
So it's totally free. There's no catch. I don't want your credit card. I'm like literally like out of these 9 skill sets, generative questions is one of like the lowest and most powerful hanging fruit skill sets that you can use. Again, I invite you not to just lean on that, because there's more to it. 'Cause if you're not responding in the best way to the answers to these questions, or labeling or mirroring or that kind of thing, then the questions become a rapid fire interview,
Right.
and that's not effective either.
Right.
But if you go to thedadedge.com/25 questions, that's 25 questions. It's totally free. Put in your name and email, and then you'll have access to just a quick video training on the psychology behind generative questions, why they create intimacy, why they create connection, why you're going to have better conversations, why you'll actually probably have more passionate sex just because you're just doing it because of the intimacy and the safety and the how it elevates the entire relationship. Plus, I give you a PDF with 25 generative questions that you can use immediately. So that's a free resource. The other free resource is what I call 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage.
Okay.
That one is very easy as well. It's on our homepage, thedadedge.com. You'll see it right at the top. All that is it's an email series. It's 15 emails over 21 days. And what it does is I teach you 3 different skill sets, and then 3 very distinct challenges for you to go out and do. And they're very simple. They're not complex, but I basically teach you the skill set over email. And then I'm like, okay, here's how you then go do this.
Right.
One of them is actually generative questions, taking your wife on a date night and giving you several different questions that you can ask her on that date night. And I have guys reply to that email all the time. Like, hey, here's your challenge for the week. Take your wife on a date night. Here's how the conversation can go. Utilize, 5 to 7 of these 25 generative questions, and let me know how the date goes. And Chris, I get replies from guys, man, every day. Oh my gosh. I have guys tell me that their wives cry because of these questions. And they're nothing crazy. The questions that they ask, but they tap in to this emotional part of their wife. Like one of the questions was, tell me, tell me one of your most favorite childhood memories with your mom or your dad, and tell me why it was so meaningful for you.
Yeah.
And when women have to go back to their childhood and be like, oh my gosh, there was this one time, and it brings them kind of to their emotional knees, think about the connection that's happening to their husband
Yeah.
with their husband in that moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, so things like that. So they can get that free resource as well.
Man, that is awesome. And guys, make sure to go to the show notes. This is going to be a show note heavy episode. That's cool though. Go to the show notes, because we'll have the links there for all Larry's resources. Because it sounds like you guys need to jump on this email train right now and go ahead and get that stuff into your inbox, because there's just too much darkness coming in our inbox. He's trying to give you some light, so jump all over it. So, last thing I like to do, Larry, with everybody, if you don't mind, it's a quick lightning round. I
Yeah,
got a few questions. It lets our listeners know a little bit more about you. And if you're willing to jump in, we call it feeding time with the line within us.
let's do it,
All
man.
right, brother. So, what's your favorite thing about God?
Man. Yeah, if I could just answer that super quick, it would be just his grace and forgiveness, to
Love it.
love somebody like me who's so flawed, and just welcomes me back into his, I mean, call it life or call it presence, even after I was like the prodigal son spiritually for so long. So just his grace.
Yeah. No, next question. What are you currently struggling with right now?
Um, what I'm, oh, it's going to sound so crazy, but here it is. So I've been so busy. I was telling you about crazy deadlines and my brain is mush. April
Right.
was crazy. I did a bodybuilding show with my 14-year-old. I went right from that deadline to writing 35,000 words in my new book coming out in September. I went from that to hosting a retreat for some of our mastermind guys in Colorado. And now we're going on a podcast blitz over the next 90 days. What I can tell you is my wife and I are fully aware of this. We don't have the quality time that we used to because I've been so busy.
Right.
So, but we're very aware of it. So we're like, okay, we're planning out dates for the next 90 days. Like, our weekly date, because we are not
Missing that.
we're not
Right.
missing this. No matter
Yep.
how busy we get, no matter how crazy
Yep.
it is raising 4 boys, we are going to do this.
Nice. Nice. Well, best of luck with that.
Thanks.
Uh, next question. What are you most afraid of, Larry?
I would say getting to my life and regretting something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you,
Yeah.
what'd you spend too much time doing last year?
I was spending way too much time doing the things in Dad Edge that I shouldn't have been doing. And
Ah,
I needed to either do it, delegate it, or delete it.
got it. Three more to go, man. Then we're done. So what do you wish you would have learned sooner about God?
I wish I would have learned that I was worthy of a better relationship with him.
Awesome. Awesome. What's a new habit you're going to try to create? Or maybe that you are creating?
Yeah. So I'm staring right now at 3 different books that I have. So one is Living Faith, where I have a passage of the day, Daily Light for Men, um, Daily Stoic, and then I just picked up this book called The Power of Positive Parenting. And what I do is I just spend about 1 minute in Living Faith, another minute in Daily Light, 1 minute with Stoic. So that's like 3 to 4 minutes right there. And then I spend 10 minutes reading Positive Parenting, and then I got like an arsenal. I journal about it. So it's helped me practice mindfulness and get my day off on a good start.
Man, that's great. That's great. That's a great habit right there. It sounds like you got like the miracle morning type strategy going on over
Yeah,
there, man.
just a little
It's awesome.
different.
Awesome. Now, the last question here in feeding time, Larry. What's one thing you hope the guys that they're listening, the Lions, what do you hope they remember from this conversation today?
What I hope that men learn is give themselves some grace. So if you're not patient with your kids, like listen, it's not your fault. It's a skill. Don't come down on yourself because you think you're less of a man if you've lost your patience with your kids. It's a skill. It's kind of like going out and learning, like we said, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. If you go up against a black belt and you've never done Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and you come down on yourself being like, I should have beat him. No, you shouldn't have because you didn't train for it. Same thing with these skills. Same thing with your wife and what we talked about today with the big 3 and the 4 skill sets we went over. If you haven't been doing these things, that's okay.
Right.
But what I will tell you, it is your responsibility now that you know that these are skills, go out and learn them. Right. So
Hmm.
if give yourself some grace for anything in the past, but also be willing to go learn. Set the ego aside, know that these are skills and go learn them.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, this has been great. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Because we'll make sure we sync up all the way to connect with you and what you're doing. But just any final thoughts?
I think that's it, my friend.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute blessing. Thank you so much for joining us here on the line within us, Larry.
Thanks, brother.
Outside of God's word, what should you be reading to grow as a Christian leader? It can be daunting to see all the options available these days. To help bring you some sanity to your search, we compiled all of our featured books of the week so you can make wise choices and strengthen your mind. The topics range from health, wealth, and self. So there's something there for all you guys. Whether you're looking for books for yourself or maybe you're researching ideas for other men, this is going to be a resource that brings you value. So check out the lionwithin.us/book to see what would serve you the best right now and start sharpening your mind to be that leader you're predestined to be. That's the lionwithin.us/book to learn more. All right, guys, that was a powerful conversation with Larry. I tell you what, he is doing some amazing things at the Dad Edge, and he just dropped so much knowledge on us that's going to help us all, sharpen up those areas of our life that we want to be the better dads. But it's not just being a better dad; it's being a better husband too. So I just can't thank him enough. It was really cool that we're able to connect. His podcast definitely serves so many people. The things that he's providing. Look, I had no idea he was going to provide us that huge discount on that patience course. I'm going to go take that course. I need it myself. I mean, I'm sure if my wife's listening to this right now, she'll be like, yeah, you need to take that course. So we'll jump all over that. So guys, I pray that this conversation brought you value, that is helping you, that it gives you some encouragement and some wisdom, some insight to help you in your walk. So the question of the week this week: how can patience create powerful dads? So think about that. How can patience create powerful dads? Larry just went through a ton for us right there on how to answer that. You need to answer for yourself. Okay. Now, guys, go out there. If you like the Line Within Us, give us a rating and a review. That is one thing that we really need. It helps really promote the podcast. It helps get it into the ears of the people we need to get it in front of, and share it. If you're at church for your Sunday school, or just in a small group, share the Line Within Us. Just bring it up. Bring up the conversation. Let us enter that. You know what? If you want me to help have a conversation, connect me with your pastor, because I'd love to just be able to share our resources with the pastors. Because you know what? I'd love for the Line Within Us Bible study to be taught in some of these churches, because it's going to open up conversations that guys need to be having. Okay, so go to the linewithin.us. Check out our resources. Again, we have the courses available now, the online courses. We have the Bible study. We have the swag. We have all sorts of the podcast, the blogs out there. We're constantly writing. We're constantly trying new things. There's a 10 scripture download right there where you can get the 10 powerful scriptures to fight like a lion. So you want to get all these resources. Some of these are free. All you have to do is just jump on and take advantage of it, guys. It's right there out in front of you. So we're working hard week in and week out. Come back on Fun Friday, and we're going to give you some really good tips to end your week. Guys, this type of conversation, this is what it's all about. It's bringing you value to help you grow, to be the Christian leader you're predestined to be. So again, I pray this was a good one for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Line Within Us. Now get your butt out there and unleash the lion within.